Cyclone Ialy stubbornly pressing closer to Tanzania on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 20th. Ialy is the only cyclone active right now, and it is just off the coast of East Africa, and is likely to get even closer to land over the next couple of days as it starts to move northwards, and still a chance that it will reach the equator as a tropical cyclone. Well, that would be something really unexpected. It's a mere 12 days until Atlantic hurricane season, and there's still no real areas of interest to look at right now. There is an enhanced risk of severe weather across the northern plains today. You can see a few little storms up there right now in the northern US. In the eastern Pacific, of course, we're well into hurricane season now. It is day 6, and this is what the basin looks like, and a few little blow-ups of convection across the region, but really nothing much to talk about, and no areas of interest likely to develop in the next 5 or even 7 days. So it's the Western Pacific then, and we've still got this area of interest, 30% chance. Model consensus is actually growing on that, but we're still not very satisfied with its current appearance, so we've kept it at 30%. And that will be moving northwestwards. Looking at the Indian Ocean, we've still got that 40% area of interest that we've marked there as well. Models look like they've climbed down a little bit compared to yesterday, actually, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one, but it still looks like there's a fair chance of this developing into a tropical cyclone within the next 7 days. We won't see any real formation until day 3 or 4 possibly. And there's Ialy down in the southwest Indian Ocean, still pushing along northwestward its general movement, and still holding on to winds of at least 50 miles per hour, if not maybe a little bit higher still. So let's take a closer look at Ialy right now, and this is where it is. It's not far from the coast of Tanzania, really. It's 435 kilometers from Pemba, 487 from Grand Terre still in Seychelles, 489 from Mombasa, Kenya, 499 from Lamu, further north in Kenya near the border with Somalia, and 501 from Zanzibar City. So well within striking range there, but its general movement will make it clear of places like Zanzibar. It looks like it will be further north if it does get closer to land. That really would be a surprise for the coast of Kenya or even Somalia in the next couple of days. So there it is right now. It has moved further west than expected, so certainly the possibility that it will continue to do that, and you can see where exactly it is there. Still looking okay on satellite imagery. Looks like wind shear might be increasing over it now, especially on the right hand side. It might be in danger of becoming exposed fairly soon. The cloud tops aren't quite as strong as they were a few hours ago as well. There's some visible imagery again showing the storm's presence. Those clouds are moving still a little bit further west, but I imagine the center is moving a little less quickly towards that northwestern area up there. Some dry air to the north and definitely to the west, of course, over Africa. And there's another look at some infrared imagery of the storm, which is still holding on to being a very stubborn storm. Is this Cyclone Ialy. Certainly had a few opportunities where it could have died off, but still pushing strong. There's a little look at the eastern part of the Indian Ocean, where there's a lot of cloud cover but very little in terms of organized activity. That other area of interest that we had that could have been a tropical cyclone near the equator died off very quickly overnight. Now this is the Western Pacific, this area of interest. As you can see, it looks pretty shocking. It looks very poor right now, so that's why we've kept our chances relatively on the low side, even though model support has drastically increased. So there's another view of that invest right now. This is 93W, feels like it's been here forever, feels like the models have been wanting it to form forever, and you'll be seeing something very similar once again on the GFS in a few minutes as regards its track. But there it is right now, very poorly organized, if not organized at all. Let's look at the eastern Atlantic, US East Coast. A lot of low cloud cover along the coastal regions there of the northeast, and a few storms here and there. A little stormy around the Keys this morning as well, but in general the Gulf of Mexico looking pretty calm. And looking at the Caribbean Sea region there and over Central America, generally quite calm. Thunderstorms blowing up over Panama and parts of Costa Rica. Looking at the eastern part of the Atlantic there off the coast of Africa, we've got some low latitude clouds, but nothing of any note. And in the eastern Pacific, once again, you've got a few little areas of thunderstorms, isolated ones out at sea. Western Pacific as a whole looks like this. Quite a lot of cloud cover over the Philippines and some showers that have been moving through China and out over into the South China Sea now. And we've got some storms over the Indochina region too, Vietnam, Cambodia in particular getting some strong storms right now, as is southern India, some monsoonal storms. Now this is the sea surface temperatures then. The eastern Pacific still holding some good temperatures there and definitely increasing further north as well into the Gulf of California. A few spots there going up to 26 degrees now. Off the coast of eastern Florida, we've got temperatures pushing 29 degrees there on the Gulf Stream, and on the interior part of the Gulf of Mexico, western coast of Florida, those temperatures really climbing there as well. In the western Pacific, we've got a few areas now up to 30 degrees Celsius in the Philippine Sea. That aerial coverage is increasing, and in the South China Sea, some very warm temperatures there too. Hong Kong still not quite at 26 degrees yet, interestingly there on that graphic. Bay of Bengal is still very warm indeed, so if anything forms there, it will have tons of energy with temperatures over 32 degrees in one or two spots possibly. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, right at the top is where Ialy would be, around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius waters there. And in Mauritius, those temperatures just about to drop below that 26 degree threshold now. Around Australia, still some good temperatures here and there off the coast of Western Australia, Northern Territory, and one or two spots in the Gulf of Carpentaria still above 28 degrees. And in the South Pacific, it's pretty much what we were looking at in the last few days. Temperatures slowly abating, but still decently warm off the tip of New Caledonia. Compared to average, it looks like this. The Atlantic is very much above average, and that cool pool in the subtropical Western Atlantic is closing up a little. The Eastern Pacific, still that corridor of warm waters compared to average. Western Pacific looking good, particularly in the South China Sea. Bay of Bengal, a massive hot spot on the eastern part of the bay there, up to 3 or even 4 degrees above average. And where Ialy is right now, a little warm spot there too, pushing maybe up to 3 degrees above average as well off the coast of Kenya. So looking at oceanic heat content, there's still a few hot spots in the Eastern Pacific, and they'll become more apparent as we get towards the peak season. The main spot there is south of Mexico. Western Pacific looking very good there off the coast of the Philippines, extremely high amounts of OHC. And this is the Atlantic, really not seeing much difference with this one. Around Jamaica is still the hot spot, with a few areas south of Puerto Rico and east of the central Lesser Antilles as well being some good areas there for oceanic heat content. Western Caribbean as a whole though looks good. So let's take a look at the GFS for the next 5 days, and 3 guesses as to what we might see on the GFS in the Western Pacific. It's the same old, this storm becoming, or this invest becoming a fully fledged typhoon once again and recurving off towards the east. Although some difference on this one is that it does pull a little bit closer to the Philippines once again. So that one does get relatively close there as a tropical storm within 5 days, and then even a typhoon and rapid intensification towards the end of that 5-day period. Here's Ialy. You'll see there it crosses the equator and still might have tropical storm force winds briefly after it does so. So it is going to be a extraordinary storm if it manages to do that, but a word of warning, it could still just continue northwestwards and end up making landfall in northern Tanzania or in Kenya, and that would obviously be a worst case scenario considering that those areas have been affected by flooding all season, and this would make it quite a bit worse. Now the Indian Ocean, looking towards this Bay of Bengal system, you'll have seen yesterday's model run calling for a powerful cyclone in the 950s. Well, it doesn't do that today. The GFS in the 5-day period calling for a storm, the very disorganized, sloppy one, to be forming up along the coast of Myanmar and only probably getting into the 990s or maybe 980s in pressure, and a tropical storm possibly getting towards hurricane status, but certainly nothing like what we saw in yesterday's run. Now this is the precipitation chart for Cyclone Ialy as well over the next 7 days, where you can see exactly how much rain we're looking at in relation to this storm and possibly other systems around it. Some of those islands in Tanzania, I think it was Pemba, could receive significant amounts of rain, and Mafia Island as well to the south, 7 inches there, 6 inches at Pemba, 150 millimeters, and on Zanzibar 3 inches there as well. Further north into Kenya, some areas there receiving 2 inches of rain, including in Mombasa, that's 50 millimeters, and in some parts of the interior there, some higher amounts of rain as well. So here's the longer range, this powerful typhoon into the 940s millibars, so that could be a high-end category 3 or category 4 moving off towards the northeast, but you know, I'm still not buying it because we had this run around a week or two ago with the last area of interest, and we've had this scenario play out so many times here, GFS crying wolf. Will it come true at some point? Well, we think it might do, but will it be this time? I'm not sure. Very powerful storm, by the way, turning extratropical through the northern Japanese islands, the Kuril Islands, in fact, and towards Kamchatka. And this is what's left of that system that moves into what looked like the Ganges River Delta there as a tropical storm, and it was shriveling up towards the end of it. Certainly a far cry from what we were seeing in yesterday's run. Watch again closely. Here it is, moving through very close to Chattagram, actually moving north inland and affecting parts of Bangladesh, Myanmar border region, and even into the northeastern reaches of India later on. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request at any time. Still waiting for Hone? Well, you bet you we are. Well, into the Scilly range then, day 10 to 16, and not much in the tropics to look at, except maybe another little signal in the eastern Pacific, and you would think so because it is entering early June and we really should be starting to see some systems forming there. Well, there is one near the very end. It's only a weak to moderate tropical storm and doesn't seem to last that long, but there it goes, forming right near the end of that period. It's well into June. It's, when is it, the 3rd of June there, something 4th, and there it is forming definitely towards the end of that run. Still very speculative. Well, on this day, a masterclass in 1976 in the Western Pacific. We had Tropical Storm Olga, which rapidly, explosively intensified to 130 mile per hour Category 4 on the same day pretty much, before making landfall in Luzon in the Philippines. And we also had Typhoon Pamela, which is much more well renowned for causing serious damage on Guam as it blew through there late on the 20th as a Category 4. One of Guam's most destructive storms, and certainly the most destructive there since Karen of '62. Back to today then, and we have our Atlantic naming list. The first name is Alberto in the Eastern Pacific. It's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific we're still waiting for Hone for nearly 5 years now. We're code unclassified because the threat from Ialy has decreased a little bit, certainly if it swings further north. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Awinyar. In the North Indian Ocean, it's Rimal. Now, I was a little surprised that Met France, even though they were very confident on that area of interest near the equator, they didn't end up naming it. But the JTWC did push tropical cyclone status on it, 25S, but we didn't get the name Jeremy. That's still the next name on the list. In the Australian region, it's Robin, and in the South Pacific, the next name is Pitta. That's all for today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.